All right, welcome everybody to episode 144, where we are going to talk about the closing track for Power Windows, which is Mystic Rhythms. I got a really awesome panel here today. I'm really excited for this conversation too, and I'm excited to talk about it with all these guys. We've got David, Chris, Alex, and myself, Jim. So we're just gonna get right into this closing song that starts out with just the best instrument that it could absolutely start out with. Start us out with drums. Neil's actually on, I believe he is on is he on the electronic side of this one? I think he is. He's on the electronic kit when he plays this one, starting out with his rhythm. That is oddly not really easy because it's really easy to flam stuff. I'm already getting drum nerdy here, right? It's not an easy rhythm, but it is very cool. So what do you guys think about the intro to this tune?
That's just a super perfect setup to the song in a lot of ways. Like, just sets the mood, and it's sort of it's very different on many levels for them as well. You know, the electronic side of at Power Windows level and Hold Your Fire level is, at the maximum. And so they're just immersing themselves in that technology. They're on record saying if it was available, we wanted to use it. So they were doing that on this one for sure. And Peter Collins, contribution to this record, and also Andy Richards, keyboard player. Those guys just had so much more input and add so many different layers to these songs. So this is just another one that has that. It's really lush.
It is, and I really love how the intro, to me, it starts out kind of sparse with just the drums, and then the instruments slowly get added, and I love Alex's guitar work on the whole song, but the intro really stands out to me. I just really love that.
It sets a mood that the song is about.
Yeah, it really does.
I'm trying to remember. I feel like, this might have been one of the songs that he really disliked recording. I can't remember if that was, obviously he went on record as taking issue with the keyboards, but the idea that, all right, now you got to find your place in all these keyboards, but that's often a good thing because it makes you have to reach for something different.
And he picks up an acoustic guitar.
It is
for that intro, I believe.
Yeah. And, a lot of people seem to be down. Well, maybe not a lot, but there is a group of people that seem to be down about Rush's, keyboard era phase. But I think there was some really great, strong songwriting. And I think Alex had to, just like you mentioned, Alex, he had to find a place where he can fit, right? Where he would be. And I've said this I feel like a broken record. I've said this so much. I think he just found his place really, really well, and he made it extremely musical.
Oh yeah.
Right. It wasn't just about fast solos.
Nah.
Right, and everything going on at the time.
Yeah.
So,
and I think his parts provide a glue to this band, overall, in many eras of the band, but especially this era, because the other instruments were so prominent, and especially the levels and layers of keyboards that were there. The bass is always going to stick out. Geddy's always got his bright tone, and his and his little solo fills all over this song are so cool. And they fit in this great way. And then of course Neil, the centerpiece of the whole thing anyways, is providing all that. And Alex's parts always seem to add this cross rhythm or counter rhythm, and it marries everything. It's like the thing that if that wasn't there, all this stuff would seem like a little more scattered or whatever, and then his part goes bonk.
Neil and Geddy are more methodical, and he's more visceral and just goes for it and finds that spot. And in the nice juxtaposition, like Dave said, of the acoustic against the electronic drum kit.
Yeah.
And it fits the song, it's more primitive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it really does. Very cool. All right, well, let's get into the lyrics. We'll start like we always do with the verses and the chorus and all that stuff. All right, so first verse. So many things I think about when I look far away. Things I know, things I wonder, things I'd like to say. The more we think we know about, the greater the unknown. We suspend our disbelief and we are not alone. Chris, you want to take us out on this one? You want to start like that?
Well, as usual, they're giving us a lot to think about, right? But I think that this song in general, too, being that it's the last song on the record and things like that, I always think, I know they think thematically and sequence-wise, like placing things in certain places. And this is like Power Windows, what are the ways in which we are observing the world or are observing our lives or are and how can we see different things from different perspectives. And I've always thought about this song as a song about wonder and a song about suspending your disbelief and allowing yourself to feel or be present in another culture or another energy, another feeling. And so that, I mean, this is just he's just stating this in a very poetic way on a certain level, as usual. The more we think we know about, the greater the unknown. Like, that's just the metaphor for life anyways. Like, you gain a little bit of knowledge and then you go like, oh dang, now I gotta learn 17 more things.
You
and
keep feeling smaller and smaller and smaller.
Oh, man.
And that macro to micro thing of I mean, I think this is just one of those thematic areas of his of Neil's lyrics and his writing, and also just in the general scope of the band. Like, you can just take the whole catalog and look at it in this way as well, and not all music holds up to this kind of thinking or this kind of process, and so I just think it's a great, to me, it just captures the mood of the piece, and it sets us off into the journey that is this song. And then, I mean, you can't say, and we are not alone, mystic rhythms. It's just like anybody who knows the song knows that just comes right after that, and it's not really a break. It's just like another continuation of the thought. Yeah. So those are, that's what I'm thinking.
It's almost like they don't even finish the measure out, going from the "We Are Not Alone" to "Mystic Rhythms," right? It's like it's a carryover from the previous measure. Even
the next phrase,
it's right there. Cool. Yeah. Anybody else want to add anything?
Well, I was going to say something about the line "We suspend our disbelief," but Chris spoke on that beautifully. And the line right after that we've just been talking about, "We're not alone." One of the things you think about it, everybody looks at Neil and, he was an individualist. It was always about the individual, but he thought a lot about community as well. And in suspending our disbelief, maybe there's, we're not alone. Maybe there's more to it. But I like that line.
True. Yeah, it's very cool. Very good. All right, well, then they get right into the first chorus. Mystic rhythms capture my thoughts and carry them away. Mysteries of night escape the light of day. Mystic rhythms under northern lights or the African sun. Primitive things stir in the hearts of everyone. Wow. David, you want to start this one? Yeah, I know.
So much.
Go ahead.
All right, let's see what we can do. Well, of course, starting off the chorus with the title of the song, "Mystic Rhythms." I think Neil at this time too had, he had visited Africa, was beginning to experiment a lot with African rhythms. Excuse my voice tonight. And the idea that this isn't methodical, it's not purely rational. You can look to the sky, the stars, all these things you look at, mysteries of night, escape the light of day. And yeah, you can explain those things in terms of Western science, but they also capture the imagination in ways that you just can't quite explain. I have a class where I teach my students about myth and mythos. And we tend to think of myth as something that is not true as opposed to fact, since,
Right.
Enlightenment rationalism, that's how we think about myth. But in early cultures, myth was just storytelling. And it wasn't a scientific explanation of the universe, but it somehow gave them a sense of themselves and their connection to this big, scary world. They had, we have to explain things as human beings to feel secure. But the line that I really, really love in this part is primitive things stir the hearts of everyone. If you look at the whole album, big money, corporate stuff, grand designs, Manhattan Project, the bomb.
Yeah.
This is about big things, living in Middletown and whatnot. But all of a sudden, he turns to the primitive, something visceral, within us, which actually is a theme that plays out a lot on the next album, I'll Hold Your Fire. He seems to explore that quite a bit more. And whether you see the Northern Lights, just the fascinating things that happen in nature, it stirs your heart in ways that cold, rational explanations about things don't always do. And somehow Neil seems to be saying, maybe we need to be in touch with that as well.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. Anybody want to add to anything David said? Or
David said it well.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. I mean, sure. I think there's go ahead.
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Well, I sometimes I think about like the idea of genetic memory, or or that kind of imprinting that's happened over generations, and like, mystic rhythms and people playing music, people singing, people doing all these different artistic things. Have been going on for thousands of years, and we've had different languages and all these different so the idea that like there's a subset of our existence that is controlled and operates on this really ancient level, and then we have this other whatever we've adapted to in our current environments here. And so even though that's not in the song, it's just a thing that I think about when I look far away. But that idea of like, these guys are all like very highly intelligent people, and we don't necessarily consider our primitive or primal selves that much when we're talking about philosophy and higher math and all of these different things. Yet that stuff is there powering us, making us live and breathe and do the things that we, allow us to think about those other things. And so there's things like that I just always, I don't know, I've listened to this record probably a billion times. It is probably my all-time favorite Rush record. It, for me, just all of these songs, and this one, I don't know, there's just something about it when you listen to a lot of the same music over and over and over again. You start to absorb things and apply it to like all sorts of different ways you can think about life. So that's a super deep tangent, but
that's a good one. That's a good one. While you were talking, I was able to think of something else as well. That again, that last line, primitive things stir the hearts of everyone. It kind of goes back to this idea of things that are universal. We are not alone. Primitive things stir the heart of all of us, everyone. So it's again, universal things that we can't understand, but somehow bind us.
It's humanity.
Together. That's where we're all the same.
Yeah. Well, and just I had something that was forming when Chris was talking, and it's sort of it's just another addendum. I'm good. It's sort of wait.
Well, now we'll never know what it was, and
yeah.
it probably would have changed our lives.
I might never know. It's somewhere in my head.
You got the next analysis.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It might play into that. So
You're up.
It could. So let's dive into that next verse, right? So we sometimes catch a window, a glimpse of what's beyond. Was it just imagination stringing us along? More things than are dreamt about, unseen and unexplained. We suspend our disbelief and we are entertained. All right, Alex, you got this one, man.
Well, at this point, you figure also too, and in this, I am remembering what I was just thinking. So essentially, we're coming out of a motion detector into mystic rhythms, and they're kind of companion pieces to each other because, like David was saying, we had the big money, we had the corporate world, we had territories, we had the Manhattan Project, and now he's getting personal, he's getting individual, getting insular, basically saying we're humans, everyone's a human, we all have this. Yada yada yada. It's under the sky. In this situation, especially, I feel like he's speaking to the fact that these were three guys working in the arts, in the humanities, whatever someone would think of, technological rock, experimental rock, progressive rock. You're still in an arts field, and if you're in an arts field, you have to sit and do nothing. You have to let your mind go. Otherwise, you have nothing to offer. And to me, we sometimes catch a window, a glimpse of what's beyond. I mean, if we allow ourselves, we can see that, whether he wants to say window opening up, speaking of the name of the album, and we do see what is possible, perhaps, even if it's just simply playing our instrument, if it's writing, if it's painting. Oddly enough, with photography, it might even be more literal as far as looking through a viewfinder and have that frame. Was it just imagination? Hopefully. Is it stringing us along? You have a career in the arts. That's clearly what's happening to three guys in Toronto.
Yeah.
And obviously there are many other interpretations to that too, but I'm just running with that one at the moment. So to me, this verse really does speak to, once again, glimpsing what's beyond. What he said in line 2, that there is something beyond.
Yeah.
There is more than the tangible, more than what we're wearing, what we're playing, what we're holding.
Right.
And also too, heading towards the end of this verse, unseen and unexplained, we suspend our disbelief and we are entertained. That actually reaches to, I guess, in 1986 he in the I don't know what it was, merely players. I don't, in 1986 I wasn't reaching for too many magazines or watching TV shows, certainly not in Toronto, so I don't know what merely players was, I will admit. But there was a quote where he said, Neil, I don't really believe in astrology, but I don't discount it out of hand either. It's one of those things the piece talks about, the song, obviously. We suspend our disbelief, we are entertained. As long as the president isn't being guided by astrologers, parentheses, I know, then it doesn't hurt anybody. And obviously, and that was transcribed through the Backstage Club in 1990. And then he says, I'm agnostic but curious and romantic enough to want astrology to be true. And of course, the reference of the president being Nancy Reagan changing some plans because her astrologer told her, which I think we're all old enough to remember that or think, oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, for me, that verse does speak to the necessities of humans to create. And, are we creating, or are we seeing what's already there and helping bring it into the world? Are we the conduit, the tool for the craft that we engaged in, whether it's, the instruments that, or, the art we're involved with?
Yeah. Wow.
Very good.
Yeah. Wow.
I like it, man. That's
me too. That's awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a hard verse to unpack,
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Right. But no, that's great. Does anybody want to add to that? I cannot. I think, Alex, what you said was fantastic.
Yeah, I don't have any more thoughts on that one either. That was great.
If I shoehorn one more in, I'll say that if I take the time to butcher an aphorism of Robert Fripp's, he said that basically that beyond our everyday world lies the world of riches. And to that extent, it's pulling back the veil and saying, I'm here. Oh, I can do this, or this is available to me. So
Yeah.
just a little more. I'm done. Bookended.
That's good.
That's
Well-
good. I like the King Crimson reference as well.
Very good.
Well done.
Yeah,
Well done. Like
Yeah.
that.
Well, I can play off that a little bit too. Those first two lines, we sometimes catch a window, a glimpse of what's beyond. Okay, it seems true. Sometimes there's a beyond. Sometimes we get a glimpse. Then the next two lines, but was it just imagination stringing us along? It's just our imagination. Now, I know Neil read a lot of philosophy, but to my knowledge, he never read one of my favorite philosophers, a French philosopher named Paul Ricoeur. And Ricoeur talked about imagination and fiction, where sometimes in philosophy, those things get kind of dissed, right? You have the real, and then image, imagination, those things are somehow just a little bit less. But Paul Ricoeur said, no, imagination and fiction gives us the power to redescribe reality. So, and so imagination, the way, Neil was putting it here, maybe it was just imagination stringing us along, but imagination actually has a good side to it, a productive side. And then that's where the art comes in, right? And the creativity. Yeah. So, so much in here, so much. I'll stop too.
Sure. All right. So
it's great.
All right. So this last chorus, and then we'll talk about some music stuff after this, right? So mystic rhythms capture my thoughts and carry them away. Nature seems to spin in a supernatural way. Mystic rhythms, under city lights or a canopy of stars, we feel the powers and we wonder what they are. We feel the push and pull of restless rhythms from afar. It's funny because in all my years of listening to Rush, and I've been a fan since 1982, I very rarely just read the lyrics and hold in on them because I was so blown away by the instrumentation and the musicality that these guys have. But I think this chorus, I mean, obviously a companion to the first chorus, right? Really kind of a couple things that really stick out for me, right? The under city lights or a canopy of stars. So if he's talking about these rhythms, right, or this mysticism or whatever we're talking about, all of it, right? It can happen anywhere. That's kind of what I'm getting, right? Under city lights, so you could be in the city, the canopy of stars, where you're kind of out in the country, or maybe you're like in the middle of Africa where there's no cities anywhere around, and the stars are very beautiful when there's something around and you look up, right? We feel the powers and we wonder what they are. I mean, and to anybody, I know Neil did not quite have the Christianity type of faith. He didn't believe that, but I always felt that he believed that there was something, right? The powers and wonder what they are. I felt that there was something out there, right? Whatever it happens to be. That's just kind of my thoughts on that.
Well, that's the agnosticism there.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, and you figure he'd written about various parts of power as far as the camera eye, writing about the power of New York and London, subdivisions being drawn into the city, and referencing the far unlit unknown as they grew up in a suburban area. Though, I mean, St. Catharines it's a legit city, but he was a farm dealership, worked at farm dealership. So that's heading out in the countryside. And I certainly grew up in a small town with cornfields and forests surrounding me. So yeah, you can stand in the city and there's that energy, that obvious energy, but you can stand in the countryside, and that's where some people might sort of feel like they can feel the earth or the rhythm of the universe, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, any other thoughts on the lyrics in general? Because I really want to talk about at least two parts of the music.
Well, I'll try to be brief.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it was Chris at the beginning talked about wonder. Might be the person that said that, and Jim, you touched on it. Whether it's city lights under a canopy of stars, wonder can happen anywhere, right? Absolutely anywhere. But what strikes me about this verse, and you kind of see the theme throughout, the song. First, when I look far away, and then capture my thoughts, carry them away. And now we feel the push and pull of restless rhythms from afar. This is kind of getting us out of the familiar, what's explainable to us, what's comfortable to us. And it really kind of speaks back to territories. Just occurred to me in some ways, right? It's that same, putting it in a different context, but it's still the idea of stuff that's out there that we don't know, but yet at least in territories, of course, it puts us in opposition to one another, unfamiliarity and strangeness. But here it's calling us. So I think it just wraps up that question beautifully.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
I've been inspired by this band and by a lot of other music in the world, and a lot of times it's just because it sounds some way, or it strikes me in some way that puts me in a different place, or takes me off guard, and I go, what is that? Whoa, it's surprise, right? I'm a jazz improviser mostly, and so jazz is the sound of surprise. So that idea that, like, what can be, whoa, what was that? And so again, I think there's also just a correlation with these guys of always pushing forward, always exploring new music, new musical avenues, new adventures, electronics. Oh, we've never done anything sort of quasi-tribal the way this, as you were saying, Jim, at the beginning, right? There's all single strokes, and it's, there's no like finesse to the drumming. It's just hits, right? But then all the synth hits, all the little bass bursts, all of those things are all that same thing. No one flams anything or does like a, it's all boom, bang, bing, bing, bing.
Yeah.
But then the guitars, as we were talking about the layers, Alex's layers are like these other rhythms that help it flow in this other way. And anyway, so musically and philosophically, I think there's a thing lyrically with this whole song of like being inspired by something, and it is from somewhere else. Every inspiration is from somewhere else. These things don't come to us from ourselves. They come from outside. Could be right next door, but it usually is, when you watch a great movie that you've never seen, a foreign film, or, a director you don't like, or maybe you don't watch a lot of animation, but then you watch an animated film and you're like, oh my gosh, what the heck just happened here? And why do I like this so much? And I think that, at this time, it's the mid 80s, like, I can't help but look at it now from our time period and how much technology and access to technology we have. But in 86, when I was 15, 85, sorry, when I was 14, this was a powerful thing, and you had to seek those things out, right? And like I went to magazine shops and looked through every magazine that had music in it to see if there's anything about Rush in it. And then I bought it if it had it in there. It's like you had to find those things. So anyway, that wonder and that curiosity, to me, this is one of those songs that's always inspired me to think that way, and to remember that that's something that you can grab a hold of and turn into something of your own. So
that's good.
If I could pull a segue off of Chris. You brought up the idea of seeking things out, and I will, it's always going to be welded in my head where I got this record for Christmas in 1985. And we didn't have MTV in my house because basically my father figured if he wasn't going to watch it, he wasn't going to pay for it. So, we had HBO and a couple others. So in that respect, it was basically, we had that black cable box on top of the TV, with the actual channel and then the fine dial. At one point, February, some Sunday, just random Sunday, it might have been Super Bowl Sunday in 1986. And of course, I'm not a sports fan. I'm not watching the Super Bowl. And I remember just flipping around looking for something, and I heard this coming out of the TV. And it's like I'm immediately, because it was a scrambled channel. It was probably MTV, and I'm trying my best to fine tune that thing because it's seeking out like it's on the TV. I can almost make it out. I mean,
Yeah.
basically those Gen X pages on Facebook would talk about, oh, remember when we used to try to see naked people on the. I'm trying to find a Rush video on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of two videos. First song had a video. Last song had a video.
Yeah.
And sort of,
Right.
what's it look like?
Yeah.
Because it was few and
for
far
sure.
between for some of us.
Right.
Yeah.
And that I noticed in your notes on the Google Doc too that you had there was that footnote about it being used as the theme music for a show,
Yeah.
show. I didn't know. I
didn't either.
I just happened. I saw the show though on TV. I just was flipping around like you were, and I just hit the channel, and that show was starting, and I heard Mystic Rhythms, and I was like, "What?"
Wait,
Yeah.
why is this show awesome?
Yeah. And I that show was not long lived, but that was a cool thing to see that they used that for the theme. So
that's true. That's awesome. Yeah, and music wise in this song, something that sticks out to me music wise is the bridge and the solo. The bridge is so sparse, right? Where Alex's guitar kind of more fills it up, right? And Neil's just kind of playing some accents, little tiny rhythms that he's doing, with probably sampled like world percussion kind of stuff. And then they get right into, when I was writing my stuff out, they get into the guitar solo, and I'm listening to it, I'm like, it's not a guitar solo, that's a bass. So it's a bass solo, where a guitar solo would, I guess, normally be.
Yeah.
Right? I was like, that's cool. I don't know why my brain just kind of, I think I always knew that it was a bass solo, but I just didn't think about that, right? But that really sticks out. No, I was just going to say that really sticks out to me. Something different.
Yeah, we're trained to think in terms of guitar solo. But between this and Vital Signs, it's like the joke about the bass solo, but it's sort of, this is perfectly fitting.
Well, no, so I mean, it's not like a solo where he's ripping a bunch of notes out either.
It's very melodic.
It's like it's just this like, and it's all in the pace of the tune, and it's sort of floating along, and
Alex throws just a few small notes, shreds in there on top of it.
But then the cat, and it's that arrangement idea too that we've talked about from the Alex and Dave and I talked about it on the last one we did, where their idea of like, oh, we have these chunks of the songs, and we're gonna have these things that unfold, and this was that era for them of exploring those things, and how do we make a 16-bar section go somewhere in a different way than we have before. And there's so much of the keyboards that are that providing all this texture, and then the instruments are just placed so well in it. And this record is like, some people complain about it as tonally, but it's very 80s, but it also sounds amazing. You can hear every single thing perfectly that happens on this album.
Yes,
the mix is like absolutely like crystal clear at all times.
The mix is so great, and I think the songwriting is great. The songs, I love all of the songs. I mean, there's not a bad song on this album in my opinion. Right. There's no one song that I'm like, I'll skip that. I don't need to hear that again. Right. So the only time I skip anything is if I skip The Big Money, just because I'm so excited to get to Grand Designs. But that's the only reason.
It was the lead single. You've heard a lot.
Yeah, I have heard it a lot.
The other fun thing for guitar-wise in this is that this is basically an E flat minor, and so his arpeggiated line that he comes in with is he's starting on the flat 7 and then goes to the root. And then when he gets into the chord, the 16th notes, he's hitting on B flat as a major chord, and then D flat as a sus. So they're really kind of bringing in a little bit of harmonic minor for the chords, which they did in YYZ. So they're not pushing the harmonic minor in anyone's face like, oh, this is going to be the stereotypical Egyptian riff.
Yeah.
But the chords did help sell a little bit of, the root movements and whatnot, as it pertains to the melodic lines. It helped to sell a little bit of that headspace, so that we're moving beyond the predictable Western theory. When it's not a 1-4-5 progression. We do have our 5 chord, but there's a pivot point around that 5 chord.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Well, anything more you guys want to add for this time?
Well, the show of hands live version.
Oh, yeah.
Just a touch faster than the album version, and it's interesting to me because of how much technology they use. They had to decide before they did that's where that was going to be on that tour, because they had, when you make samples and sequences, that's it. You have to play to that now. You can't, there's no human going like, come on, computer, play with me,
Especially in 1986.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're locked in.
Yep. And so that was that's always a curious thing for me. And then I listened to the one, is it the Time Machine tour or the
R30?
R30 version as well. And that's back down closer to the album tempo. But little trashier bass sound because it's the jazz bass, and the wall is on the record and on the show of hands version. So
he used the wall on this one?
Yeah,
for sure.
Okay.
And then the jazz in the later years was it just has a different bottom and a different kind of aggression to the thing. And then his soloing is more just spontaneous and crazy, because he's like, I get to do my thing right here. And he was looking for those later in the later years.
Oh yeah, it's kind of cut loose and have fun, man.
I'd urge people to check out the Counterparts tour videos that are on YouTube. The March 22nd, 1994, because he was using the jazz bass, of course, but his vocals on that tour were pretty cool. He was changing some vocal melodies in a really interesting way. The guitar part was interesting because they sampled part of it, because at that time Lifeson needed to change from his Ovation to a PRS. So they kicked into a sampled section, which, it's just interesting because it's sort of, they did it out of necessity. So I would think, just for edification and for the fun, it's sort of, anyone should check out any and all the songs from the Counterparts tour that are on YouTube.
Cool.
Yeah, great idea.
I've watched other ones from that show, but I don't think I've watched Mystic Rhythms. So that's cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Well, guys, I think I know it's been a very fun discussion for me. Thank you, everybody, for sharing your thoughts and for hanging out. And for you guys out there, if you've been hanging out with us and you're still here, thanks for hanging with us. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you can see when we're going to drop some new stuff. And I think we'll do a few other things, but then the next album we hit will be Let's Hold Your Fire, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
What is wrong with my brain? I used to be able to recite all these in order, like without missing a beat, right? So we'll hit Hold Your Fire next. And until then, take it easy, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, you guys.